Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hey, you guys, this is Kelly, and thank you so much for being here with me today. You have no idea how happy it makes me that you decided to join me today. I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Johanna Walker, and we are talking about the power of your story. And her story is powerful, and I'm so excited that she's here to share it because I think that it's going to resonate with a lot of you. I think that women often feel that their voice doesn't matter, or that their voice isn't loud enough or powerful enough. And I think that when we start to step into how worthy we are to be here in this moment and how needed we are and how much we matter, then our story can move mountains. And it's important that we share it. And that's what Johanna is going to share with us. Before we get to the interview, I just want to remind you that there's just a little bit of time before my fall mastermind starts. And this mastermind is for you if you have had an idea burning inside of you for a long time, or maybe even a short time, but it's burning, it's waiting, it's wanting to get out, it's wanting to birth itself into reality. If that is you, this mastermind is something that you should think about applying for. It's a group of women, powerful, magical women that come together and take inspired action individually and support each other as they go through it. And that is led and facilitated by me. And this round of the mastermind also includes one coaching session with me. I'm super excited to offer that to you guys. It is going to be amazing. And the last session of the mastermind, we had people created new programs. They started new businesses. They quit their day jobs. They did amazing things. And I cannot wait to welcome you into a group of women just like that. So if this is resonating with you, make sure you check out the link, kellycovert.com/mastermind. There's a live link right in the show notes of whatever podcast app that you're listening to, or you can just head on right over there, kellycovert.com/mastermind. This is by application only because it's really important to me that you are in the same place of your journey that the other women in the group are, because that way everybody will be working on the same kinds of things, even if you don't have the same idea, even if you're not in the same business, even if one person's working on a book and another person is working on a coaching program, whatever it is, if it is from a heart of service, this is for you. So one more time, that URL is kellycovert.com/mastermind. So let me tell you a little bit about Johanna. Johanna Walker is the fear-blasting storytelling maven for coaches, consultants, leaders, and change makers. She's the founder of Women Who Speak, a transformational speaker coaching program for female leaders, and she's the co-founder and co-host of Boulder, Colorado's popular bi-monthly story slam series, Truth Be Told. In addition to her work as a speaker and coach, Johanna has written and performed solo theater pieces that she's toured throughout the U.S. and Canada. She holds a Master of Education from Kent State University, an MFA from Naropa University, and is certified whole speak public speaking coach. You are going to love her energy, her spirit, and her story. I can't wait. Let's get right to the interview. Johanna Walker, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You're so welcome. And when I first learned about you and the work that you do in helping people share their story and use their voice, I thought I have to have her on in her voice, because what we do here is we talk about connecting with our inner voice. And I think that when we combine that with using our real voice to tell our story in a way that's powerful, then we can really sort of level up and step into our power. And I'd love for you to start with how you discovered the power of your own story.
It's been a long journey, and there are many layers of that discovery. Like as I go, more and more layers of that, the power of my own story continue to unfold. I think initially I was a very, very, very quiet girl. Quiet, well behaved, didn't talk sometimes for days at a time. I went to school and somehow managed to get the right answers and was quiet. I was just the epitome of good girl, the epitome of quiet girl for many years into my teenager and young adulthood. But I was always a writer. I had stacks and stacks of journals, and that was where my voice really lived. That's what helped show me that I existed, because in the world I didn't have a lot of evidence that I existed, but in my writing I could tell, oh, here I am. But it was very private. And when I was living in Kent, Ohio, and I was writing a lot, and in the poetry community I would go to poetry readings, never dared reading a poem of my own. But there was a 48-hour poetry celebration or memorial in honor of the Kent State shootings. It was the 20th anniversary of the Kent State shootings. So there were 48 hours of poets reading poems, and people from far away sent poems for local poets to read. And I raised my hand. I said I could do that. I could read somebody else's poem. But when I went up to take my turn at the mic, they said, oh, we thought you were reading your own poem. And I gasped and shook and wanted to run away and leave the room. I was like, no, you don't understand. I don't share my poetry. But I found a poem to read and I read it. And at that point, a lot of my writing was about my experience of silence and my world of quietness. And so I read this poem, and it was such a powerful experience to hear my voice in the microphone filling the room. And I could palpably feel the connection. I could feel the resonance. I could feel my voice landing on the people in the audience, on their hearts and in their ears. I could feel the connection. And it felt good. It was invigorating. It was like, oh, there I am. And afterwards, many women came up to me and said, thank you for sharing. That's my story too. And over, as I started more and more reading poems then in public places, often about my story of quietness and silence, women came to me and said, thank you, that's my story too. And it was shocking to me that my story touched somebody else and had that resonance. And I started to see, oh, like I thought I was alone. I really thought I was alone in this experience. So one, to see that I wasn't alone was so powerful. And to open the door to a connection to somebody else. And to open the door for that person to tell her story.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah, really powerful for me. And that has, and then that opened the door to a lot more just work in the world of working with people and stories and my own stories. And
there's so much that this brings up for me, because I wrote a couple of things down that you said. You said you didn't have evidence that you existed outside of your journals. And to me, listening to you say that feels heartbreaking to me. And not something that I can relate to, but something that just makes me very sad. And I wish you could talk more about that, because I think that, like you said, you're not alone in that feeling. And I wonder how you came around to the other side of that.
Yeah, I I think the my my quietness was so much about figuring out what other people wanted me to do and be and delivering.
Mm.
I had to my job and I was good at it, figuring out how I was supposed to be and who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to think and say. But I would only speak if I was 100% certain I had the right answer. And that was
Interesting.
rare. So,
Yeah.
and I will say this is out in the world. In my family, there was a different. In my family, I wrestled with my brother and I fought with my mom and I had a voice, but it was an angry voice. It
Yeah.
was like that was where I was able to sort of show myself a little more, but it was often a rebellious, angry voice because I was trying to work out this this lonely experience of quietness.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Wow. And you know what it really brings up for me is just that feeling. You said you only wanted to answer if you knew you were 100% right. You were always seeking to figure out what other people wanted you to be.
yes,
And I feel that often in that experience, what might happen to women is that they feel like that they don't matter and that your story doesn't matter, that what you have to say is not important. And so, how do you, as a young woman who reads her poetry for the first time, and faces that fear, how do you come around to this place of understanding that your words do matter, that your story is important?
it was seeing that resonance, feeling the connection. That one time was the first glimmer of, oh, my story matters, because I got the feedback, I got the reflection, I got the the experience of the resonance, but I also got the feedback from other people telling me my story mattered, telling me it made a difference to them that I spoke. And so even though the I think that inner voice of I don't matter isn't that's not going to go away overnight. That's not going to go away instantly, because those voices are powerful and they get a grip on you, or they got a grip on me and they stick. And so we have to keep speaking
Mm.
and keep telling our stories to take the power away from that voice. And so for me, I think getting to the other side has been and continues to be about taking action and putting myself out and speaking when it's uncomfortable. And even now, telling the stories that I think, even now I find like, oh, that's too personal, or that's a little too nitty gritty, or that's too something. And there's part of me that doesn't want to share that. But when I do, that's when magic happens, and that's when connection happens. That's when something gets awakened. Something that I've been keeping in, I shed light on, and then, there I am.
Yeah. I'm here. I'm really here.
Yeah, I'm really here. And
Oh,
in relationship, I get to see that in relationship because I get to see how my story touches somebody else.
you know what is so interesting about this? The fear piece that holds us back from sharing the story is telling us a story, right? So it's like these conflicting narratives of what what is important or what people want to hear or what is important for us to say. And I think that that can really be a challenge because when we hear those stories of you don't matter, of no one's going to understand why you're sharing this, or that's too personal, or you should be ashamed of that, those stories that we tell ourselves that cause us to hide and to pull back, when we believe those, when we buy into that, it's letting that other narrative have the power, when really the most powerful story is the true story, not the story that we make up. And so
Absolutely.
how do you begin to discern in your life, when is the right time to speak out? What is the right story to tell? How do I say it?
I think it's about being part of it is trusting the impulse, following the impulse. For me, I am an improviser. Part of the way that I came to my voice was was also through dance. I started improvising in my late 20s and doing dance improvisation, and it was this whole other way to connect with people and to communicate. And it led me into a path of just a lot of somatic practices and ways of connecting to my voice and ways of connecting to my body's wisdom. That my body is what's taking me through the world, and my body is what's experiencing the world, and all of those experiences get stored in my body. And so all those stories are there in my body. But because we live in such a linear head thinking word culture, there's a way that my body's wisdom had been kind of cut off, right? And so in awakening my body and like, oh, there's so much possibility here in my body, and so much wisdom here. Once I started listening there, it's not such a linear thing for me. It's about slowing down enough and listening to my body and trusting the impulse. So if I have an impulse to say something, I follow it. I follow it. And, I will say I have this, I have a a mastermind for women to craft TEDx style talks, the talk that is the heart of your mission. And I was last spring at this retreat. It includes a 3-day retreat, and the women were together, and we do this digging process, digging for stories and digging for what's at the heart. And something happened to one woman, and she said, "Oh, fuck! This is the story I have to tell," and it became identified as a fuck nugget. So it's like,
I love that.
I found a fuck nugget.
Really?
It's like, really? That's the story I have to tell? And so it's like being willing to cast around, being willing to dig, and being willing to cast around. And many of us have a story kind of at the top. Well, here's my life story. Here's the thing I know I need to tell. And that's there. But once we dig a little deeper and trust what arises, that can be kind of scary. And that happened for this woman at this retreat. And so it became named a fuck nugget. And then later on in my own dig, I came across my own fuck nugget of like, oh, that's the story I have to tell. That's the next thing. That's the edge for me. And, I think when that arises, we always get to choose. I think you always get to choose whether or not to tell your story and what you want to share and what you don't want to share. And you don't have to share anything. But I think for people like me and probably you and probably your listeners who are on a growth path, those moments that show themselves to you, I think when we decide to follow those impulses, a lot of transformation happens.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost like I wrote down this question of, what do you tell women when they think that their story is not powerful? And it's almost like we have to shift the whole paradigm of what the power is there for. Because maybe you sharing your story, you using your voice and being heard, is the power is that it's going to heal you. And when that heals you, then you're going to be better able to serve. Or like in your experience, maybe it will heal you and touch other people. But I think that the problem is we put almost like these sort of defined objectives over what it has to do in order for it to be quote unquote successful or powerful or whatever, when really we just have to trust that this urge that we're having to share is an important urge that we must listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think even the most benign stories, like it doesn't have to be a big drama, it doesn't have to be a big tragedy, it doesn't have to be a big moment of suffering to be a powerful story. That even the most benign stories, if you tell it from your heart and from the realness of who you are, that's going to connect with somebody. It's going to make a difference to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we don't have to make our stories into big tragedies.
You know, I think that's so interesting because I think that's why some women don't feel that they have a powerful story because they don't have the I was half dead on the floor
Right.
moment. Do you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I love to hear you say that because you're right. Anything can change. Anything can serve, and it has to be just that it's from that pure voice from within rather than, you know, something that's not really you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is in telling the story, it is healing for me, for the teller to speak the story. It is transformational. That we can be changed by telling our stories, but that alone is not enough. Like I think it is important also to be able to tell the story, to be able to step away enough that my telling my story is a gift to you,
Hmm.
and to hold the audience in my heart and my awareness, because there's two sides to the coin. There's I this is an exercise I do in my one of my programs. I have something to say that I want you to hear.
Mm.
There's two sides to it. It's yes, I have something to say. Yes, I have a story to tell. Yes, I'm going to be transformed by telling it. But I want you to hear it. I want you to hear it, and it's important that you hear it. And part of the transformation is in you hearing it. And so I
Yes.
need to hold that in my awareness as I'm telling my story, as I'm developing it, as I'm working on it, is who's going to hear this story? And why is it important to them that they hear this story? So it's not just about me and my healing. That's part of it, but it's only one side of it.
Mm-hmm. So I imagine that confidence plays a huge role in our ability to share and to share effectively. So, how do you teach women how to build up that confidence, how to step out, how to, you know, share the story that is the fuck nugget?
Well, I think the confidence comes through practice. It comes through stepping out of your comfort zone and seeing what happens. So a few different ways. I talk about like there's your comfort zone and most of us sort of exist pretty well situated in our comfort zone, and then something will take us a little bit out into our risk zone. And then beyond the risk zone is the danger zone, where it's like in the risk zone, I feel like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to, this is a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to be okay. And then out in the danger zone, it's like, whoa, this is a little unwieldy. I don't know exactly if I'm going to land on my feet. And the more we can actually go out into the danger zone and take those risks, the comfort zone gets bigger. When we come back to the comfort zone, that's expanded.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do a lot of work with I do a lot of work with improv theater and working with breath and voice and ways of getting your whole body. I'm I really believe in the power of embodied speaking, that we speak from and through and with our whole bodies. That my voice doesn't live just in my face and my throat, it lives in my
Mm-hmm.
whole body. So the more I can wake up that full embodiment, here's my voice. And that for a lot of people means getting out of your comfort zone and playing and being ridiculous and being goofy and just expanding the range of expression. So by expanding the range, then when I come back to, okay, now I'm giving my talk, I just have more access to more of my expressive capability.
Totally. I 100% get this and believe in what you're saying. It's interesting because I am a professional flutist and I also teach college level flute. And this is my same experience with flute, with music making. When you think that it's just the instrument that's making the sound, your sound is completely different than when it's coming from inside of your body. And an exercise that I often use with my flute students is to exaggerate everything. Exaggerate how loud you want to play. Exaggerate how softly you want to play. Really, if you're going to move big, and just sort of
Yes.
give yourself permission in a safe place, like home or in front of a girlfriend, to practice coming out into like a bigger form of you, if that makes
Yes.
any sense.
Exactly. Yes.
And I love that. And it's not a difficult practice to do if you're feeling safe. So, like at home in front of the mirror, sometimes that might not feel safe, but maybe in front of a coach like Johanna, or a girlfriend, or a group of women that you mastermind with, but really giving yourself permission to kind of be more than you are, or more than you
Yes.
think you are. Because I really think we have all of that inside of us. We just haven't accessed it yet.
Absolutely. Yes, it's so much of the way I work is going big so that I can find more of myself. But I also think, I just want to tag the feeling safe question, that feeling safe is a story. It's a story it's a feeling, certainly, and an experience, but I think in many cases it comes from a story we tell ourselves, like, oh, this is safe, this is not safe. If I'm
Mm,
not safe, I'm not going to do it. But I'm curious about being able to step into that feeling, take the story of safety away, and really be present with the feeling. I think one of the ways of growing that confidence, is getting comfortable with discomfort, is being willing to be uncomfortable, being willing to show up for it, stay present for it, actually know in my bones that I am safe, even if I don't feel safe.
yes.
And I think that's how it expands.
Yeah.
That's how that confidence expands, is by being willing to show myself, even when the feeling of showing myself is ridiculously uncomfortable and
Mm-hmm.
everything in me is telling me to run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I can really stay present with that, that brings my humanity forward. It brings my vulnerability forward. It brings actually more of who I am forward.
Right. And then that's where the growth happens too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Very good. The word that comes up for me is inhibition. So I'll tell you this funny little story. Since we're talking about storytelling, I remember when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I was in middle school, I really wanted to go to a school dance. And I asked my mom if I could go, and she said, "Well, how do you guys dance while you're there?" And I was like, "I don't know, you just dance." And she goes, "Well, show me." And I wouldn't show her. And we actually like had sort of like this moment where she was like, if you're not going to show me how you dance, I'm not going to let you go. Which, by the way, just as a side note, I don't think is effective parenting. But that's what she said. She sort of like put her foot down. Well, if you're not going to dance for me, then I'm not going to let you go to this school dance. And do you know what? I didn't go, because I did not want to dance in front of my
Mm-hmm.
mother.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I have felt very inhibited when it comes to
Mm.
dancing. Like, I
Mm.
don't enjoy dancing at weddings.
Mm.
Um, Although when I was in college, much like you, I took a modern dance class, and I loved dancing there
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like everyone else was like, they got it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so it was a little bit of a safer space. But when we feel so inhibited around something, I think that it's hard for us to even imagine doing that. So, like,
Yeah.
what could a baby step be?
Yeah. Well, I think, on the flip side, like creating a container, building relationships, creating a safe space is, of course, valuable. And so it's, where are the places where you can take a, where um, yeah, you can take a risk and get uncomfortable, where I think it's important to distinguish between the feeling and the reality. Like, the reality in that situation with your mom is, maybe it wasn't safe. Maybe her judgment or her harshness wasn't actually going to serve. Like, maybe that was a really good choice of yours to not dance for your mom.
Yeah.
So I think it's being able to discern between the feeling of I'm not safe and the reality of
Yeah.
am I safe? Because the there we can tell ourselves the story of I'm not safe and not do it. But I think when we really check in with am I safe? What would happen? I might have to have some uncomfortable feelings if I do this. But that's okay. It's having those uncomfortable feelings that are going to shed the feelings. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
shame and humiliation comes up for people. And that shame and humiliation is old. That got slathered on us as young people. But the truth is, now, as adults, we're in charge. We're adults. We get to make different decisions. And sometimes that feeling of shame and humiliation is just residue from the old shame. And that being willing to step into it and actually feel it and then watch it dissolve and peel away, that's how we get to reclaim more of our power.
100%. Yeah. And I love that you say you have to check in. You have to check in beyond the feelings, beyond the story, and really check in with your heart and ask that question, am I safe? And when we do that, that's when we find that real answer. And I'm happy to report that I can dance anywhere now.
Great.
It does have a happy ending. That story has a
Yay.
happy ending. And it's funny because I started like in that dance class, I felt really safe there. And then, as an adult out in the world, I would dance at the gym with my girlfriends, like when we were hanging out, we would dance. And there was something about that just reminded me, like, this is okay. Like, I'm okay. This is the real me and it's okay. And I think that when we start to share our stories too, that's how we're going to feel. We're going to feel more connected to who we really are.
Yes.
And that's amazing. And that's when we can be powerful. That's where we can be change makers in our world.
Yes. Yes.
I have a little bit of a different question off of what we were saying, but connected to what you spoke about earlier. And that is your practice now of silence. And the reason that I ask this is, for me, I've never been a quiet one. Like I maybe talk a little too much. And I have learned the power of silence for myself, the power of drawing in for certain periods of my day or my week in order to feel connected to my inner voice more, because it's really distracting. Noise is really distracting for me. So I wonder, for you, coming from this very sort of silent youth, how you use silence now. Is that a practice for you now? Do you still need that? Or how does it work for you in your life?
Yeah, interesting question. It's been a long journey because silence has, at least early on in my young adult life, silence was very connected to trauma and to isolation and to loneliness. So I came into communities. My dance community just brought me into communities of consciousness, and space holding and circles, and often silence was part of the practice. I remember I went to contact jams and we would do a silent morning, and it was incredibly uncomfortable and painful for me and isolating, and it just brought me, like, I couldn't do silence. Silence was very triggering for many years, and slowly I've healed that and turned that around, and now I love periods of silence and being able to be in that stillness and really connect to my body and my breath and my quietness. And sometimes I still get in situations where I'm the quiet one at the table and it's really uncomfortable, and I have to do some deep work to really stay in a place of self-love. And I also, have put my have done a lot of deep practices of silence and quietness. So it's a very rich place for me that is still unfolding. I think I have a book. I think my book is about quietness,
Oh,
silence,
I'm
and
feeling
voice.
that.
Yeah.
I would love to read that book. I really would, because I think that that's a practice that many of us need more of in our life. Because for me, when I get quiet, that's when I can really connect with my own inner voice, that place of wisdom that has the answers, that can show me the path, that can remind me of my worthiness. And I need that every day in order to survive,
Yeah.
in order to just live, right? So I'm curious too about your own practices for connecting with your inner voice. You mentioned that you journaled a lot as a kid. What do you do now? Do you have a daily practice, or how do you really dig into your own inner wisdom?
I think it's really through my body. My daily practices are always changing. I don't have every I have periods of different daily practices. I've never been one to have a daily practice that sticks for years. But I think essentially it's my body, that my
Mm.
wisdom is in my body, and it's dropping into my breath and my belly. I think I actually commented on your Instagram post last week about not sucking my belly in.
Yes,
You
you
asked about what
did.
rules need breaking. And I've really been, I'm 54, I'm expanding into a middle-aged body, and it's it's a new body. My body is changing, and I'm really celebrating and appreciating my belly, and just like, what is it to not suck my belly in, and to not even try to make my belly look flat, and to just really, like, I have a belly, and there is a lot of power in my belly. There's breath in my belly. There's my voice resonates in my belly. There's wisdom in my belly. There's so much power and knowing that lives in my belly. So by not sucking it in, and by letting it take up space, and by connecting to my wisdom that lives there, that's where I connect to my inner voice.
Mm.
So, the practice right now that I've been experimenting with is, what is it to not suck my belly in, and to really, really let my belly take up all the space it wants to, and finding how much that connects me to my power.
Oh, that is so good. And I love how you are offering an alternative to a daily practice, that you're creating your own, right? That it doesn't have to be journaling. It doesn't have to be meditating. It doesn't have to be yoga, although those are great. And if
Yeah.
that's what you do, that's amazing. But you can make up your own. And if it's powerful and meaningful and helps you connect in to who you are, then it is the perfect practice for you.
Yeah.
And I will also just note, as a musician, if you're sucking your belly in, you can't actually take a full breath.
I know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
which,
I talk about that all the time as a speaker also.
yeah, as someone who uses your voice, I think we have to
Yeah.
remember that when
Yeah.
we make ourselves smaller, we limit ourselves in many, many ways.
Yeah.
So what is your inner voice saying to you as you walk around with your belly hanging out?
It's saying, my body, I trust my body. I trust my body. I trust my body's doing exactly what it needs to do. And something about that, it challenges the bombardment the barrage of messages that as a woman I need to be skinny, and as a woman I need to have a flat belly, and I will only be desirable with a flat belly. And it simply by letting my belly take up space, I'm challenging, like it's saying, I trust my body. I
Mm-hmm.
trust my body. My body knows what it needs to do. And by
Mm-hmm.
allowing it to do that, I think it actually, it's like water. It's like water for a little seed that wants to grow. That is my wisdom.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Johanna, I can't wait to see what that seed grows in you. I just want to honor you for sharing your wisdom with us today, for sharing your practice of silence and your practice of using your voice. So, so powerful. And I really hope that everyone can take these things that we've talked about, the practical parts of it, and also sort of the more spiritual aspect of that, and really understand how powerful your story can be for you and for the people around you. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Really fun talking to you.
Thank you guys again for listening today. I really hope that this episode makes a difference in your life. And if it does, can you do me a favor? Can you share it with the women in your life? Share it with your mother, your sister, your best friend, your workout buddy, your neighbors, the other moms in your mom's group, whoever you think really might benefit from hearing these words. Please share it in your Instagram. Take a screenshot. You don't even know how much that means to me when I see people sharing. It really matters. And you taking those few precious seconds of your day to share these words with someone means so much to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, you guys, I want to remind you, you are here on this earth for a reason, with a purpose, with unique gifts that only you bring. Please use them. Please take care of them. And please always remember, you are worthy.